Paleomythic, written by Graham Rose and published by Osprey Games, is an absolute gem. Characters in Paleomythic fight other tribes, take on dangerous creatures, explore forbidden ruins, face spirits and other magic, and help their tribe survive the vagaries of life in the world of Mu. The simple, elegant mechanics map well to the alt-Paleolithic setting. Magic is woven into the fabric of the world, combat is interesting without being a slog, and the limits of material technology really matter. I came to this game figuring it might be good for a one-shot, and by the time I'd finished reading it, I had a half-dozen adventure ideas. Now that I've run a short 8-session campaign, I'm happy to report that my group really enjoyed playing it. So this video is going to have two parts. First is a review of the game, and second is a description of our campaign with some tips for running the game. In sales, there's this concept called getting to know. The idea is that if whatever you're selling just isn't a good fit for the person you're talking to, it's better to find out right away instead of wasting your time and theirs. With that in mind, even though I'm not trying to sell you on this game, before I tell you all the reasons I love Paleomythic, you should know a few things. If you want to run campaigns in which characters can become all-seeing, all-destroying vanquishers of all who dare face them, or if you want magic that will rend the fabric of time and space, this ain't the place for it. If you want every character and creature to be highly differentiated with extensive special abilities, again, you'll be disappointed. Likewise, if you're looking for a meticulously detailed game world, you'll find Paleomythic wanting. Finally, if you want metacurrency to influence the flow of events and adjust outcomes, this game doesn't provide any. One more thing. If you enjoy lots of different dice, you'll find this game lacking. This is all about the D6, baby. Okay, if none of that dissuades you, let's talk about the game. Paleomythic is a marvel of tight book design with clean layout, evocative illustrations, and no fat. It's sturdy, well-bound, and compact to boot. Paleomythic sits in the Goldilocks zone. It's gritty without being too granular. Magic permeates the world of Mu in a way that feels organic and unforced. It's a truly dangerous world in which PCs can die, but it's also not a game where one failed spot roll gets you killed. If you're into small-scale heroics and clever use and repair of resources, you'll dig Paleomythic. Character building really surprised me. At first blush, Paleomythic looks like, well, people running around throwing spears at each other. What else is there? Well, actually, there are several ways to differentiate characters without getting bogged down in hard-to-remember details. This isn't a zero-to-hero game. Characters in Paleomythic begin competent and become more competent, but not unbeatable, over time. Many years ago, the success with a complication mechanic in Apocalypse World blew my mind. A few years later, the cinematic results generated by FFG's Star Wars dice had a similar effect. The elegance of Paleomythic's mechanics are similarly eye-opening. They're also a perfect fit for this setting. In brief, a character in Paleomythic has a number of traits, which are natural characteristics like brave, guileful, or wise. There are 12 of them, but a starting character may have up to 5. They can also take up to 2 flaws, such as oblivious or weak, each of which provides access to another trait. Every task in Paleomythic is associated with a particular trait. Want to sway the envoy from a neighboring tribe? That's a charismatic roll. If you don't have the charismatic trait, you can still make the roll. If you have the opposite of charismatic, which is the flaw, unassuming, you have to use 1 less die. But if you do have charismatic, you get an additional die. The base number of dice to roll is determined by your current traits count. So, to sway the envoy, if you have brave, guileful, wise, and charismatic as your current traits, that's 4 dice, 4 traits, plus an additional die because you have charismatic, which affects the outcome of this test. All you need to do is roll a single 6 to succeed. In addition to traits, every character starts with from 1 to 3 talents. It's tempting to think of them as classes, but they're really more like capabilities rather than professions. There are 36 talents, which is about 30 more than I would have expected. And they're all cool in their own way, like Soothsayer, which gives a character the ability to cause disquiet and dread in others, with mechanical effects in and out of combat. Or Cave Painter, which provides the summoning of a spirit that can follow a single command on a successful dexterous test. You can easily create a really combat-focused character by choosing Berserker and Warrior, for example, or you can make a truly unique character by combining talents like Crafter and Thief. Every talent you choose reduces the number of traits you have on character creation. So if you select 3 talents, unless you take 1 or more flaws, you're limited to 3 traits. This balance is very important because the total number of current traits functions as your wound threshold. Every wound reduces your current traits by 1, and you must put an X by the trait of your choosing, which can no longer be used. Your dice pool for tests is also reduced for each wound. If your character reaches 0 wounds, they are barely conscious, and if they go negative, the character is dead. This is a marvelously elegant way to tie task resolution and wound capacity neatly together. There's no need for task resolution modifiers. As your character takes wounds, they just become less capable in all tests and lose specific special abilities. You can imagine how combat in this game will tend toward ambushes and skirmishes because taking the first hit, particularly if it's from more than 1 wound, really has an effect. Most weapons cause 1 wound, but certain traits can give a character the ability to make a second attack or inflict an additional wound. There are also several tactical moves that can be employed to keep an opponent at bay, gain an advantage, make a chancy but deadly attack, or even steal your opponent's weapon. This happened in our very first session and was one of the highlights of the evening. Weapons also have specific but mechanically straightforward effects. This simplicity also manifests in how tools operate in the game, which is one of my favorite things about Paleomythic. Whenever you use the right tool for a job, and weapons count as tools, you add a die to the roll. But if on that added die you roll a 1, the tool breaks. So you can land a righteous blow on a bear, damaging the huge creature, and break your axe in the process. Not good. Similarly, armor exists in Paleomythic, but it also breaks on impact and must be repaired or replaced. This means that crafting is extremely important. It is also a built-in mission generator for GMs. The PCs just prevailed, barely, against that bear, but now they need to find the right materials to fix the broken axe. The character with the crafter talent will fix the axe without a roll, but anyone else may waste the material and still fail in the attempt. The world of Mu also sits in a sweet spot, at least for me. The contours of life in Mu are provided, giving enterprising GMs a solid scaffolding to build on, but it's also easy to modify without ruining the central conceit. Mu exists in an alternate Paleolithic era in which magic permeates the land, dangerous creatures wait for the unwary, mysterious long-forgotten remnants left behind by ancient forebears are ripe for exploration, and of course, rival tribes trade with and fight with each other because that's what humans do. The other world is important to the inhabitants of Mu. This spirit realm can be visited by those with the shaman talent and those they choose to bring with them. There, spirits will be encountered, and perhaps, if the visitors are lucky, they can find a wraith who will give them hidden knowledge. In Mu, there are a variety of religious practices, social arrangements, and political structures, all tightly described in the book and ready for a GM to build out as they see fit. The wide variety of combinations available gives the GM a lot of latitude in creating their own intra- and inter-tribal alliances and tensions. In our own past, many societies believed in magic. It informed their daily rituals, their explanations for the comings and goings of the seasons, their relationship to everything around them. It was powerful. It was truly knowable only to some, but it was not something separate. How do you bring that feeling into a tabletop RPG? Paleomythic does it by making magic accessible to any character, useful in ways that make sense in the game world, not overpowering, and at times inseparable from physical skill or mental acuity. This is absolutely a game that works for one-shots, but if you're at all into fleshing out your own tailored for your table version of the world of Mu, Paleomythic just begs for campaign play. It doesn't take much prep to get going. The trick is to rough out the big picture, detail only the things that need detailing up front, and start small. In this case, I wanted the theme of the campaign to be about group survival and collective identity. How do groups of people with different ideas about how to run their lives get along? What will members of a group do to survive? I also wanted to create a situation in which the actions of a faraway force create a ripple effect. As one group runs away from the danger, it encounters another group and conflict ensues. I wanted to see if the PCs would try to get to the bottom of what was going on or just react mindlessly to the immediate danger. So first, I created the geography and the basic setup. The plains are populated by small roving tribes. The hills to the north are the domain of the wolf tribes. And beyond that, deep in the mountains is the home of a long sequestered danger that has just been let loose, moving into the hills and forcing the wolf tribes into the lowlands, where they come into conflict with the plains tribes. The wolf tribes are ruled through charismatic leadership. The strongest, loudest individual calls the shots. The lowland tribes are governed in a variety of ways, most of them involving collaborative power sharing. They don't get along all the time, and at any given moment, some of them are likely feuding with each other. But they also need each other. They trade, intermarry, exchange information, and participate in a huge gathering every spring. I put together names for a few of the lowland tribes and 2 or 3 characteristics for each of them, but put more detail into the PC's tribe, the Hearth People. I also talked with the players up front. They were ready for a campaign in which the PCs were tightly tied to their community, so I put together brief profiles of every one of the members of the Hearth People. Because the lowland tribes move with the seasons, I paid particular attention to factors like availability of game, weather patterns, and so on, to really drive home the importance of the land and the tribe's dependence on it. For the first session, I kept it simple and had the PCs investigate word of wolf tribe activity nearby. That set things in motion, and from there I just kept the world going and let the players react. Having the tribal structure in place helped because it constrained PC actions in an organic way and forced the players to negotiate with and cajole other members of the tribe in order to affect the Hearth People's reaction to events. After 8 sessions full of hair-raising combat, wilderness investigation, encounters with ferocious beasts, family drama, do-or-die negotiations, and intertribal politics, we put the campaign away. But when the time is right, I'm definitely looking forward to picking it up again. A few thoughts after running this campaign. Making the tribe the focal point ensured that the campaign was distinct from the usual fantasy group of murder hobos going out to seek fame and fortune. Combat moves swiftly in Paleomythic, and it can be quite deadly. So it's not well suited to large encounters. Most of the time, the PCs were scouting, snooping around, engaging in sabotage missions, that sort of thing. When faced with superior numbers, they wisely fled. Players coming into Paleomythic should leave any D&D style expectations about combat as sport behind them. Relatedly, as a GM, it's always good to have an idea of what's nearby when PCs get into combat because they or those they are fighting might break off at any time, potentially leading to a chase scene. It doesn't take much to reinforce that Paleomythic isn't like most fantasy games. But one thing in particular is important, I think. There are no sword shops. There's nothing already manufactured sitting around waiting to be used. So crafting really is important, especially when your weapon is broken and an enemy is tracking you. With this in mind, crafting, hunting, foraging, all of these tasks are necessities, and when done well can garner accolades and influence for PCs just as much as winning a fight. Magic is, as I noted earlier, not overpowering, but it can be quite helpful, particularly when preparing for a fight. Paleomythic is well suited to short to medium length campaigns, but the way character progression works, eventually characters will top out. That's fine, and it fits the gritty, no superheroes here feel of the game. So moving through seasons and even years relatively rapidly works well in a Paleomythic campaign. That's it for now, folks. If you've played Paleomythic and have thoughts of your own, let me know here in the comments or in the Discord. And thank you for watching.